Hello, everyone, and welcome to another episode at Buena Vista Therapy. So today we are going to explore habits, old habits, new habits that you want to develop, habits that you want to change. So we're going to be looking at that today. So let's get started. So habits. Many people believe habits are about willpower or self-discipline. They think, well, if I really wanted to change, I would. The reality is that habits are a part of a way our brain are designed to work. Habit is more than just something we do repeatedly. It's a behavior that has become automatic through repetition. It no longer requires much conscious thought. We don't need to think about it because the brain has learned that it can perform the behavior efficiently. So think about learning to ride a bike, driving a car. In the beginning, every movement requires concentration. Over time, those actions become automatic. You don't need to think about how to drive a car again. You automatically do it. So habits develop in exactly the same way. Exactly the same. Some habits help us live healthier and more productive lives, while others can begin to interfere with our well-being. The good news is that if the brain can learn a habit, it can also learn a new habit. So we're going to explore how habits develop, how they become automatic, what purpose they often serve, and how we can begin retraining the mind to respond differently. So I get asked this quite a lot. So what makes a habit automatic? So let's first understand that every behavior begins as a conscious choice. The first time we do something, our brain is paying very, very close attention. As we repeat the behavior over and over, our brain notices a pattern. So eventually, it begins storing the behavior as a shortcut. So this process helps us conserve mental energy. So imagine if every morning you had to consciously think about every step involving like brushing your teeth, tying your shoelaces. Literally daily life would become exhausting if you had to think about everything. Instead, the brain automates behaviors that are repeated often. So this is one of the brain's greatest strengths. However, the brain doesn't judge whether a habit is good or bad. So let this sink in. The brain cannot judge if the behavior is good or bad. Maybe later we may realize that, okay, maybe I need to change something. But because we run so much automatically, we're always on automatic pilot, we don't think about it. We don't. It simply notices what gets repeated and what produces some kind of reward. So this means healthy habits and unhealthy habits are learned through the same process. The brain simply learns. When this situation happens, this is what we do. Understanding this helps us realize the habits are learned, not permanent. So think about it for a moment. There was a time when you didn't take your phone or your iPad to bed. So let's think about that for a moment. Think about the time when you took your phone or your iPad to bed. Why did you do that? Was it simply to relax, distract yourself, watch your favorite TV show, for example? Or was it to distract your mind because of some other underlying issue? Something that's bothering you, something that may be causing stress, for example, or something that may be causing anxiety. Maybe there are some distressing memories, for example. So we use the iPad or the phone to distract our mind, especially at night. So there's such an increase of that, of taking a digital, an electronic device to bed. But remember, there was a time when you didn't do that. So first time you did that, maybe you did it out of just pure leisure, just to relax. Right there. Brain learned that. Okay, we keep doing that. We're getting some sort of reward too. The reward is we're relaxing, we're chilled. We can forget about everything. That's a habit. Can you change that habit? Absolutely, yes, you can. So let's explore for a moment the purpose behind any habit. So almost every habit exists because at some point it served a purpose. So perhaps it reduced stress, like I said before, provided comfort, created distraction. That's a big one. Create distraction, helped avoid emotional pain, provided excitement, created a sense of control, or simply just became familiar. But stop for a moment and ask yourself, what does this habit do for me? How does it help me? Stop for a moment and see what answers come through. Understanding the purpose of a habit is important because the behavior, we can start to understand what's going on. Understanding the purpose of a habit is important because behaviors usually continue when they meet a need. So there's some sort of need underneath all of that. So rather than asking, what's wrong with me? Why can't I just let this go? Or why is it that I can't, I can't not take my phone to bed? Ask yourself, what is the habit trying to accomplish? What does it need? If you can answer that question, most likely you're getting insight, you're getting some sort of awareness right there. So if you think about it for a moment, like if you take your constant, and let's use the example of the phone because that's a very, very common one. You're constantly taking your phone to bed. What's the need behind of that? What's the need behind that habit? What is it trying to accomplish right there? And what's your answer? So let's go a little bit more beneath the surface. Habits rarely develop in isolation. So often there are underlying emotional, psychological, or environmental factors that contribute to them. Some habits develop during stressful events. Some begin in childhood. Others form because they helped us cope with anxiety, uncertainty, loneliness, grief, boredom, or emotional overwhelm. So sometimes the original reason for the habit also no longer exists, yet the brain continues using the same response because it has become familiar. It doesn't mean that there is something wrong with you. Please understand that. It means that your brain learned a strategy once seemed helpful at time. Today, however, you may have fewer options available. So exploring these underlying causes isn't about replacing, or it's not about placing blame on you. It's not about that. It's about developing insight. Because when we understand why a habit developed, we are better equipped to change it. Okay, let's talk about ambivalence for a moment. One of the biggest obstacles to change is called ambivalence. Ambivalence means experiencing two opposing motivations at the same time. Part of you generally wants to change, another part wants to keep things exactly how they are. And this is completely normal. So imagine someone who wants to stop procrastinating. One part of them wants success, another part wants to avoid the anxiety of making mistakes maybe. Or let's say someone who wants to stop emotional eating. Part of them wants to eat very healthy, while another part wants to have the comfort food or the sugar rush. These competing motivations don't make you weak, they simply show that different needs are competing for attention. So two motivations are competing for your attention. A health exercise is to ask yourself, what are the advantages of keeping this habit? What are the disadvantages? What would changing allow me to gain? What might I fear losing? Answering these questions, honestly, often increases motivation while also reducing self-judgment. So can we retrain the brain? Can you train the brain to learn a new habit? Absolutely yes. Just as the old habit was learned through repetition, a healthier habit can also be learned through repetition. So the goal isn't simply to stop doing something. The goal is to teach the brain a new response. When the familiar cue appears, pause. Take a breath for a moment. Ask yourself, what am I doing? What am I feeling? What triggered this? What do I actually need right now? Sometimes you may choose the old habit. It's okay. Every moment of awareness is progress. As you become more aware, you create space between the trigger and the behavior. And within that space lies choice. And choice is where change begins. It is also helpful to replace the old behavior rather than simply removing it. If stress triggers smoking, it's a short walk, deep breathing, or speaking to someone supportive can meet the same need. If boredom leads to doom scrolling on your phone, perhaps reading or exercising or engaging in a hobby can provide stimulation. Replacement behavior doesn't need to be perfect also. It's all about trial and error here. It simply needs to move you towards the person that you want to become. With repetition, the brain begins strengthening these new pathways. Gradually, what once required conscious effort starts to become more automatic. Remember this, change happens through practice, not perfection. Changing habits is not about being perfect. It's about practicing new behaviors often enough that your brain begins recognizing them as the new normal. Imagine walking through a grassy field. Your current habit is like a well-worn path. It's familiar, comfortable, and easy to follow. However, though, creating a new habit is like walking through untouched grass. At first, it feels difficult, of course. The old path seemed so much easier. Every time you choose that new direction, you flatten the grass a little more. Eventually, the new path becomes easier. Eventually, the new path becomes the easier one. And that is how lasting change occurs, not through willpower alone, but through awareness, repetition, understanding, and self-compassion. Remember, your brain learned your current habits. And because the brain is capable of learning throughout your life, it is also capable of learning healthier ways of responding. Every small step matters. Every pause creates opportunity, and every new choice strengthens the future you are creating. Change is not about becoming someone different. It is about helping your mind learn a healthier way of being the person you already are. How long does it take to develop a new habit? That depends on you. Maybe 2 weeks, maybe 66 days. Replacing an old habit can take longer than creating a completely new one because the old neural pathway is already so well established. There is no really magic number. Most people begin noticing that a new behavior feels easier after several weeks of consistent practice. For many people, it becomes fairly automatic after 2 to 3 months, although some habits take longer. The goal isn't to reach a magic number of days. It's to keep repeating the behavior until it becomes your brain's preferred way of responding. So I would love to know down below, how did you change a habit? What did you do? What did you notice? How long did it take? What was the most difficult behavior you had to change? You had to change maybe because of your health, for your well-being. Perhaps you just wanted a different lifestyle. Whatever it is, I would love to hear your comments, your experience. Let me know, how did you do it? And remember, every day you're doing better and better with the resources that you have. I hope this video has been insightful. And remember, never lose sight of yourself. You don't have to be great to start. You do have to start to be great. There's always possibilities to change. And remember, the power is the choices that you have. Always think about the choices that you have right this very moment and take a chance and go for it. Thank you once more. Take care of yourself, and I'll see you next time. Bye for now.